Welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told as Podcast, the show where we take everyday objects and uncover their hidden stories.
That's right. And today we're diving deep into something you probably use every single day, but haven't given much thought to.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Towels.
Towels. Really? I mean, I use them every day, but I've never really thought about them as being all that interesting.
Well, get ready to be surprised because the history of the towel is actually pretty fascinating. It takes us on a journey through time, culture, and even technology.
Okay, you've got my attention. So where do we begin? Where does this towel tale start?
Believe it or not, it all starts in 17th century Turkey, specifically in the city of Bursa.
Turkey. Wow, that's not what I was expecting. I was thinking maybe ancient Egypt or something.
Nope, Turkey, and forget the fluffy terry cloth towels you're used to. Back then, they had these things called peshtamals.
Peshtamals. What are those like?
Imagine a flat, woven piece of cotton or linen, almost like a sarong. They were lightweight, surprisingly absorbent, and perfect for the humid environment of the Turkish baths.
Interesting. So not exactly the plush towels we're used to today?
Nope, not at all. But they were perfectly suited for their purpose.
And what was their purpose exactly?
Well, the Turkish bath was a really important part of their culture. It was a place to relax, socialize, and get clean. And the peshtamal was an essential part of that experience.
I see. So how did these peshtamals evolve into the towels we know and love today?
Well, there's a really cool linguistic connection. The Turkic word for these looped towels was havli, and that actually evolved into the modern Turkish word for towel, havlu, which literally means with loops.
Ah, so that's where we get the looped terry cloth.
Exactly, and it's this innovation, the introduction of loops into the fabric, that really transformed the towel from a simple piece of cloth into the absorbent wonder we know today.
Fascinating. So we've got these looped towels becoming popular in Turkey, but how did they make their way to the rest of the world?
That's where the story takes a turn towards industrialization. You see, towels remained a bit of a luxury item until the 19th century.
What happened in the 19th century?
Two key things: the rise of the cotton trade and the Industrial Revolution. Suddenly, cotton became much more readily available, and machines could mass produce terry cloth. This meant towels could be made more quickly, efficiently, and affordably.
So like a lot of innovations, it was a combination of technological advancements and economic forces that really brought towels to the masses.
Exactly. What was once a luxury item reserved for the wealthy or for special occasions became an everyday necessity for pretty much everyone. And hey, if you're enjoying this unexpected deep dive into the world of towels, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more fascinating stories on Tell Me More.
I never thought about it that way, but it makes perfect sense. So now we're in the 19th century. Towels are becoming more common, but let's be honest, not all towels are created equal, are they?
Absolutely not. Think about all the different types of towels you encounter in your daily life. Bath towels, hand towels, tea towels, beach towels, the list goes on.
It's true. We've got towels for every occasion and every part of the body. So how did this variety come about? When did we start seeing all these different types of towels?
Well, as towels became more commonplace, people started to experiment with different materials, sizes, and designs to suit their specific needs.
So it was a natural progression from a single basic towel to a whole spectrum of specialized towels.
Exactly. For example, bath towels. They became larger and plusher, designed for maximum absorbency after a shower or bath.
And speaking of feeling enveloped, what about beach towels? Those always seem to be less about drying off and more about lounging.
You're absolutely right. Beach towels are all about comfort and style, perfect for spreading out on the sand and soaking up the sun.
Makes sense. And what about sports towels? Those seem to have their own, unique features.
Oh, absolutely. They're usually made from super absorbent materials like microfiber, so they can quickly wick away sweat and moisture. Gotta keep those athletes cool and dry during their workouts.
It's incredible how each type of towel is so perfectly adapted to its intended use. And speaking of specific uses, what about tea towels? They seem to occupy a special place in the kitchen.
Ah, tea towels. Now those are fascinating. They're a great example of how a towel can evolve beyond just its practical function to become embedded in culture. Originally they were used in tea ceremonies, symbolizing purity and cleanliness.
Oh, wow. So they had a ritualistic significance before they became the workhorses of our kitchens.
Exactly. Over time, their use obviously extended to drying dishes and other kitchen tasks, but they still retain that sense of, tradition and elegance. Think about it. You wouldn't use a bath towel to dry your finest china, would you?
Definitely not. It's like there's a hierarchy of towels, each with its own designated role to play.
Precisely. And it's this diversity, of form and function that makes the towel such a fascinating object to study. But here's something you might not know. There's a type of towel that was never meant to be used for drying at all.
Really? What kind of towel is that?
Yeah.
I'm picturing a towel made of solid gold or something.
Not quite gold, but definitely a symbol of status and luxury. It's called a show towel.
A show towel. What's that all about?
Well, imagine a world before, Instagram, where people showcase their wealth and taste through their possessions. Show towels were essentially decorative pieces, often made with intricate embroidery, lace, or, elaborate designs.
So they were like works of art, but in towel form.
Exactly. They were displayed prominently in homes, not for practical use, but to demonstrate the homeowner's refinement and social standing.
It's amazing to think that something as humble as a towel could be used to signal wealth and status.
Right. It really speaks to how objects can transcend their practical functions and become imbued with cultural meaning. But speaking of cultural meanings, are there any famous towels in pop culture that come to mind?
Well, I can't think of towels without thinking about, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Ah, a fellow Douglas Adams fan. Of course, in that iconic book, a towel is considered the most massively useful thing an interstellar hitchhiker can have.
I always loved that. But why a towel? What makes it so essential for a hitchhiker, especially an interstellar one?
Well, the book explains that a towel has immense practical value, of course. It can be used to dry off, to protect you from the elements, even to signal for help. But beyond that, it represents preparedness, resourcefulness, and even a certain level of sophistication.
So it's not just a practical object, it's a symbol of a certain mindset, a way of approaching the universe with wit and practicality.
Exactly. And in a way, that same spirit of resourcefulness and adaptability can be seen in the evolution of the towel itself, from the simple peshtamal to the multitude of specialized towels we have today.
It's a great reminder that even the most ordinary objects can hold extraordinary stories and unexpected depths. But speaking of stories, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about a towel that, while not as glamorous as a show towel or as iconic as a hitchhiker's towel, is certainly a workhorse in most households. The paper towel.
Ah, yes, the paper towel. The epitome of convenience, but also a source of, some environmental concern.
Exactly. It's so easy to just grab a paper towel to wipe up a spill or clean a countertop. But then it just goes straight in the trash.
Yeah.
I've definitely struggled with the wastefulness of it all.
I think a lot of people feel that way. There's definitely a tension between the convenience of paper towels and the desire to live more sustainably.
So where do we go from here? Are paper towels destined to be the villains of the towel world? Or is there a way to reconcile their practicality with our environmental concerns?
Well, that's a complex question with no easy answers. Some people argue that cloth towels, while requiring washing, are ultimately a more eco-friendly option in the long run.
I've definitely been trying to make that switch myself, using more cloth towels and rags around the house. But I'll admit, there are times when a paper towel just seems like the best solution.
I think it's all about finding a balance, right? Being mindful of our consumption and choosing the most sustainable option whenever possible, but also acknowledging that there are times when convenience and practicality take precedence.
It's like with any aspect of our lives. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. It's about making informed choices and doing what we can to minimize our impact on the planet.
Exactly. And even small changes like choosing recycled paper towels or composting used ones can make a difference.
Welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told as Podcast.
Hmm.
I'm still kind of amazed that towels have such a long and fascinating history.
I know. It's really something, isn't it? It's amazing how something so ordinary can be so, historically and culturally significant.
And, we've barely scratched the surface. Before we left off, we were talking about paper towels and the environmental impact of those. I mean, it really makes you think. Even the simplest objects can have consequences.
Absolutely. And speaking of consequences, we talked earlier about cotton production and how it really took off in the 19th century. But was there a downside to that? I mean, to the cotton boom?
Right. The 19th century was like this turning point for towels.
Yeah, right.
Thanks to all that affordable cotton and mass production. But I guess, progress isn't always, all sunshine and roses.
Yeah, it's true. The demand for cotton led to more and more plantations, which relied heavily on slave labor, especially in the American South. So yeah, the fact that towels became so cheap and easy to get, it definitely came at a human cost.
That's a tough thing to think about. It's a good reminder that the stories behind even everyday things can be a lot more complicated than we realize.
Definitely. And it's important to acknowledge that, right? To see the full picture.
So the story of the towel is really kind of like, a mix of innovation and culture and even social injustice. It shows how even something as simple as a towel can reflect these bigger historical forces at play.
Exactly. And speaking of cultural reflections, did you know that towels actually have their own special day?
Wait, really? A whole day dedicated to towels? Now I'm really intrigued. Tell me more.
It's true. May 25th. It's Towel Day, a global celebration of the life and work of Douglas Adams, the author of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the
Oh,
Galaxy.
of course, the towel. The ultimate symbol of preparedness for, the intrepid interstellar hitchhiker.
Mm.
But why May 25th?
So Towel Day was first observed 2 weeks after Adams's death in 2001. It was a way for his fans to, pay tribute to him. The date was chosen just because it felt right at the time.
So it was like a grassroots movement, huh? A way for fans to show their love for Adams and his work.
Exactly. And it's become this global thing now, with people carrying towels, wearing like towel-themed clothing, even organizing towel-related events.
I love that. It's amazing how a towel, of all things, can bring people together like that.
It really is. It shows the power of stories and how they can, connect us to something bigger than ourselves. And speaking of passions, what about you? What kind of towel person are you? Do you have a favorite type of towel?
That's a tough one. I think I got to go with the classic bath sheet. There's just nothing like wrapping yourself up in all that fluffy softness after a long day.
Oh, I totally get that. For me, though, I think I have a soft spot for tea towels.
Yeah.
They're so versatile, and the history behind them is so rich. Plus, they just, they add a little personality to the kitchen.
That's a great point. That's like they're both practical and decorative at the same time. It's kind of like the towel itself, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it's a humble object that we use every day, but it can also be a status symbol or a cultural artifact, even like a source of inspiration.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes the towel such a great topic for a deep dive. It's like a tiny window into all these things. Human ingenuity, cultural expression, and even like our relationship with the natural world.
Yeah. It's like a reminder that even the most basic objects have these incredible stories to tell if we, take a closer look.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's the things that seem really mundane that end up teaching us the most about, who we are and how we live.
So what's the biggest takeaway from all this? I mean, what surprised you the most about the world of towels?
For me, it was realizing that even something as simple as a towel can reflect these big historical trends, like the rise of the cotton trade or how hygiene practices have evolved.
Totally. It's a reminder that every object has a story to tell, a connection to something much bigger. And often it's the most ordinary objects that end up being the most fascinating.
Exactly. The towel might seem mundane, but it's actually a microcosm of so much. Human ingenuity, cultural expression, and even our impact on the environment.
So as we dry off from this absorbent adventure, I think it's important to remember to approach the world with a little curiosity and an appreciation for those hidden stories that are all around us.
And hey, if you enjoyed this towel tale today, be sure to subscribe to Tell Me More Stories Told as Podcast for more fascinating deep dives into the everyday.
I'm already thinking about what other seemingly mundane objects we can uncover next. Buttons, maybe.
Buttons. Now there's an idea. They seem so simple, but they've been around for ages, Used for everything from, like, fastening clothing to even, serving as currency.
I never really thought about their history before, but you're right, they're everywhere. What kind of stories are hiding behind those little fasteners, I wonder?
Well, I guess we'll have to take another deep dive to find out.
It's amazing to think we can learn so much from a simple towel, right?
I know. It really shows you that the most ordinary things can have these incredible stories behind them.
Absolutely. But before we go, I want to take a moment to kind of like recap everything we've talked about, just to appreciate all the things we've learned about towels.
Sounds good to me.
So we started in like ancient Turkish baths.
Right, with those amazing peshtamals.
Yeah. And then we talked about the evolution of terry cloth, mass production, all that stuff, and even that really interesting show towel, the one that was never meant to be used for drying.
Oh, yeah, I love that one. A towel as a status symbol. Who would have thought?
And of course, we can't forget the iconic towel from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
It's a classic, right? A towel as a symbol of preparedness, resourcefulness, even like a philosophy of life.
Exactly. It's like Douglas Adams was telling us to always be ready for anything.
Yeah.
and to face the universe with a sense of humor.
Totally. So I have a question for you. What's the biggest takeaway for you from all of this? What surprised you the most about the world of towels?
That's a good question. I think for me, it was realizing how much history is wrapped up in something as simple as a towel.
Yeah, me too. It's like this little window into all sorts of things, from economics and technology to cultural traditions and even social justice.
Exactly. It's a reminder that every object has a story to tell,
Yeah.
and that even the most ordinary things can be incredibly fascinating if you just take the time to look a little closer.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's those everyday objects, the ones we take for granted, that end up revealing the most interesting things about ourselves and the world around us.
Well said. So as we dry off from this deep dive into the world of towels, I hope everyone listening will remember to, approach the world with a sense of curiosity and never underestimate the power of a good story.
And if you've enjoyed this towel tale today, be sure to subscribe to Tell Me More Stories Told as Podcasts for more fascinating deep dives into the everyday.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and until next time, keep exploring.